going to sidestep a spiritual, so to speak, topic for the next probably 8 weeks, and we're going to talk about the Federal Reserve, because it's really important, I feel, and Pastor feels, to understand how this country was meant to operate, how it was built to operate, and how it's actually operating, so that we know how to pray and we know what to look for in our political leadership to get us back on track to how we should be operating. So when you start to learn about American history, we're not going to spend I'm just going to kind of do a skate the surface, and I'm going to hit some of the major conflicts in our history. But when we understand the root causes of them and how it plays in how our whole government and all of our politics are working, it'll infuriate you at times, and it'll surprise you. It surely surprised me. So I believe Kim sent out, so this study is called The Money Masters. It is a documentary that was written by a man named Bill Still, who is an economist and American historian. And the movie, or his documentary, was made like back in the 80s, and it's really, he talks really fast. So rather than play the documentary, I thought we would read the script because we can take a break and talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then, but there are parts of it that I'll play because he shows different, historical sites and such. So tonight, we're just going to introduce some terms and sort of get our feet wet. And then next week, we'll start getting the train moving. So Kim should have sent out this document so that you could print it.
Are these extras?
Yeah, so we probably only have a couple, so we'll have to share in pairs, and that's okay.
And I can leave it, I think I have this one home.
Okay.
Ooh, sorry, my big feet in the way.
Women's Day?
Yes, this is what we're doing in Women's Study.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So, I printed out some little cards for you, so I'm going to pass them out because I like visual aids. I think it's easier to understand when, especially, I am not a history buff. You could ask me any history question and I would say, let me look that up for you, because there are people that know their history. I would not be one of those people. And there are people that understand financial terms, and I would not be one of those people either. So I've been having to climb a learning curve while I was studying this study to present. So be gracious towards me when I maybe don't know all the answers, but at least I can look them up and I can get it for you.
I like this. Do we share? Do we share these two?
If there's not enough, yeah. I thought I printed enough.
Sorry.
They're like little flashcards. Don't you feel like you're back in school?
I like it. Oh, I'm sorry, Brenda.
I almost missed the chair.
How many of these?
There's going to be
Oh,
8.
8. Oh, wait, we have an extra?
If you get a double, just pass it down.
We are.
It's kind of like, the matching game. If you have a match, then pass it. You don't need 2 matches in this game.
No, I think this is
So that's up in the middle.
different than that.
See, this I'm passing, this may be doubles now that are coming around. So if you have this one, you should have 8 different cards.
No, I,
2, 3, 4, 5.
I'll be able to give them.
We need a minute.
It's got the same picture but different words.
I know, I didn't print enough of those pages.
Okay, this is fun. Okay. Okay. Are you sure? Are you sure? Because there's something that, oh yeah, that one you have too.
I mean, they're the
Yeah,
same.
so those we
That's the
have.
same.
Yeah,
It's the same.
receipt,
No,
no.
I don't have.
Okay.
Are we fogging them all? Am I fogging them all?
You should have 8 in your stack.
I think so, yeah. You should have 8 different cards. Now, if you're sitting over here, you're not going to have 8. If you're in the first 2
No,
chairs over
seven.
here, you'll probably have 8.
Well, we're sharing.
I have 7,
Yeah, so.
3.
We have 6 down there.
Yeah, that's probably true. The last page only printed, I think, 1 or 2.
Aren't you sharing?
I only have
Wait.
7.
Kidding,
I feel like being telephone the last person they hear.
I just gave you the 1, 2, 4, 6.
And the teacher, I have nothing. So y'all are going to teach we're going to learn this together.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of yell out a topic, and whoever's the first one to find that card, you can read the card. Okay, so I'm just going to make some general definitions. When we use the word security, Actually, your card that says security is actually wrong, so you can fold it in half. I'm gonna print you a new one. That one turned out not right. A security is any form of a financial, hold on. Check it. It's a tradable financial asset. A security is a tradable financial asset. It can be a debt vehicle or it can be an asset. So a security is just a general term to say that I'm going to trade this financial asset as a means to make money. So for example, if Brenda thought Arner Technologies was an excellent company, and she said, I'm going to invest into this company. And if I didn't show her the balance sheet, and she just trusted me, and let's say we had $100,000 worth of startup debt, and she bought shares into Arner Technologies, she would actually be buying into our debt. So that is similar to what a bond is. A bond is a debt vehicle. So the expectation is that she's going to invest into Arner Technologies and she's going to buy a portion of our debt, meaning that she's going to give me money so I can use it and work with it to grow the business, with the expectation that at some point I'm going to pay her back what she gave me plus interest. So the opportunity for her to make money on my debt is in the interest payment. Okay? Now, let's say she decides, she waits 10 years. She said, you're a new company. I'm not too confident in your ability to be profitable. I'm gonna give you some time to, figure some stuff out. So let's say she waits 10 years, and then she invests into R&R, and now we're prosperous, and we have money in the bank, and we have a profit margin. Now when she's investing in us, it's like she would be investing in stock of the company, because stock is an asset. It's a liquid asset. It means she is investing into the profit of the company. Mm-hmm. So it's an actual asset that she's becoming a part owner of the company. She owns a portion of it. And where she makes money there is as she holds on to that financial asset and it grows in value, then she can turn around and sell that asset and make money on the sale. So you can make money both in buying debt, because you make interest on the repayment, or in buying a part of a company or an asset that represents actual money, because you can turn around as that share of the company grows, you can turn around and sell it for a profit. So you can make money both buying debt and buying assets. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's the difference. That's why they call it the stock exchange or the securities exchange. The word security is a holder for both a bond and a stock. A bond, the way I think of it, is like shackles. Like when you go to a wedding and they always have like the ball and the chain, mm-hmm. and they say the husband is shackled or he's tied down for life or whatever. A bond
we have that.
means you are in debt. Indebted until you can pay it back, right? So think of handcuffs or think of being in jail. A bond is a debt vehicle. A stock is actual money. It's associated with ownership in a tangible asset, not in a lack of an asset. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so those are some basic terms. Somebody read what a treasury something. I think there's 3 treasury terms in there.
Treasury bond,
Treasury bond.
Yep, go ahead.
A receipt of ownership in a U.S. debt vehicle with a fixed rate of interest return. Returns face value upon maturity, 30 years.
Okay, so there is a treasury bond, a treasury bill, and a treasury note. They're all the same thing. They're all debt vehicles. They all have rates of return. Their maturity rates are different. So the longest is what did you just read me? Treasury
bond.
A bond is a 30-year maturity. So you buy a bond, you make interest on it every year for 30 years. But it's a fixed rate. So you get the same amount every year. You hold on to it for 30 years. So you know at the end of 30 years what you're going to make on that bond. Mm-hmm. Okay, who's got the, what do we have? Bond, bill, and note. Who's got the note?
The treasury note?
Yeah, treasury note.
A receipt of ownership in a U.S. debt vehicle with a fixed rate of interest return. Returns face value upon maturity, 2 to 10 years.
Okay, so that is where you buy government debt. So you say, I'm going to give you some of my money and you can use it for a period of time, but you're going to pay me back what I paid you plus interest, and that is a shorter time. You're saying, I don't want you to have my money for 30 years, I want you to have it for a couple of years.
What is it?
Gotcha.
That is a note.
Treasury note.
A treasury note. And then a treasury bill. Who's got that one?
Treasury bill. A receipt of ownership in a U.S. debt vehicle with a fixed rate of interest return. Returns face value upon maturity less than or equal to 1 year.
So that's, you want your money pretty much liquid, but you want to make something on it. So obviously the interest rates on a shorter amount of time are less, but they tend to be more stable. You know that you're going to get your money back in a certain period of time. So treasury notes, treasury bills, treasury bonds, they are all buying government debt. So you're giving them money to use because they don't have it enough. And then they give it back to you after a period of time plus interest. Okay, what else we got in there? Let's skip to the greenback and the colonial script, because they're basically the same thing. They just represent two different periods in American history. The colonial script was, so when England colonized the United States, the medium of exchange at that time was gold coins, gold and silver coins. That is what the king of England required for the payment of taxes. So when we colonized America, the colonists brought some coins with them, and when they started to colonize and trade with the Indians and whatever, they had to pay a certain amount of taxes back to England, and they had to pay it in gold and silver coins. But after time, obviously it makes sense, they had nowhere to get gold and silver coins in the new world. So over a period of time, they became depleted of their gold and silver, so they had no way of paying the taxes to England because they had no gold and silver. So they had to come up with a way where they could create a medium of exchange within the colony so they could still trade with the Indians and trade with each other without gold and silver to use. So they came up with this idea of colonial script. So who wants to read?
Colonial script?
Yep.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Oh, colonial script, yeah, okay, neat. All right, a reliable medium of exchange, debt-free paper money printed in the public interest, not backed by precious metals, acceptable for the payment of taxes.
Okay, so colonial script was not a gold-backed currency. It was what's called a fiat currency, which means that we determined what its value was, and we only issued just enough to sustain trade. So inflation is caused when we make a bunch of money, but we have more money in circulation than what we have goods to trade with. So when we can create our own money and manage the amount of it that is created in circulation and the value of it, then that's when we will become prosperous and independent. The problem, though, is that England caught on. Benjamin Franklin went over to England as one of the representatives of the colonies, and the king caught wind of the fact that America was becoming very prosperous using colonial script because it was a debt-free currency. There was no interest owed to the government on colonial script. They were just self-managing it, self-regulating it. So then he required, I think there was it's called the Currency Act we'll read about. He required the colonies to start paying taxes again to England in gold and silver. And so then that's when we learned about how the central banking system came into play. But the idea here is America was becoming super wealthy and independent and powerful when we were creating our own currency, when there was no debt or no interest associated with the money. So that's what at the end of the day, that's what we're going to get to in this study, is learning how we can get back to that kind of an environment. Okay, so then there was a period of time that passed, and then Abe Lincoln found himself in trouble in the Civil War, in the
1865?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I was thinking of the Civil Rights Movement for a minute because we were just studying that, and I was like, wait, no, that's not in the 1960s. Okay, Civil War. So same principle. He needed money to fund the war, and he didn't have enough. So he came up with this. This is Abe Lincoln. Wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, Abe Lincoln. Yeah, right? Okay. He came up with the idea of greenbacks. Greenbacks are the same principle as colonial script. It's a debt-free fiat currency that it's not backed by gold or silver. It was created in the public interest for the use of the people, for the people, by the people, and it had no debt, government debt, or interest associated with it. So that's how Lincoln funded the war, and he was doing really, really well, but unfortunately he made a poor decision right towards the end of the war that allowed the bankers to come in and issue bank notes, which carry debt on them. Do I have bank notes in there? Do you guys, anyone have a card that says bank notes?
I don't.
It's another debt vehicle.
Yes, it is. You'll have that card next week. I thought I printed that one. Okay, what else do we have that we didn't cover yet? Oh, fractional reserve lending?
And receipt of deposit.
Okay, so let's talk about the receipt of deposit. Erin, excuse me, made me some gold bars, but I forgot to grab them, and I don't think they're painted yet.
I was only in charge of cutting them.
Okay, well, I'll bring the props next
Receipt of
week.
deposit, that's what you want read?
I was going to show you what it meant, but I don't have my gold bars because they're in the garage.
Sure. A document that can be returned to the depository as a demand for return of assets held.
Okay, so we're gonna pretend. Here you go. There's your gold bars. You're a very wealthy woman.
Thank you.
I'm the bank. Is it easy or hard for you to lug around all them gold bars when you're going down to the shops?
That's hard.
You should ask Debbie about that. Where is she? She is a shopper, man. She wants to hit every dang store in sight. But it is burdensome to carry all that heavy coinage and all of those bars. So
Yeah.
wouldn't it be easier for you to deposit your gold in a secure location, and I will keep tabs on it for you, and I will keep it locked down, I'll keep it safe, and I'll give you this very lightweight, easy to carry medium of exchange.
Oh.
You can stick it in your pocket, and it'll be a lot more convenient for you. Does that sound like a good deal?
That sounds like a
Okay,
good
so
deal.
you give me your gold, all of them, and I will give you this receipt of deposit or certificate of deposit. So that on that document, it says that you deposited 500 bars of gold, 500, I don't know, however we're gonna value them. And whenever you want, you can bring me that back, and I'll give you what you deposited back to you.
Okay.
But for now, you can go use that as a medium of exchange.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what a certificate of deposit is. It's a receipt for what you put in the bank. And so the early bankers figured out that they could collect all of these goods from people and hold on to them, and Pastor Jan and Brenda and Dee and Stephanie and Pat don't all come back at the same time to get their stuff back. So we're sitting on a lot of gold. Now we have an opportunity here. We can start, this is how smart they were, we can start making a whole bunch of more of this currency, of this medium of exchange, and start loaning them out to people. And then when they pay back their loan, we'll charge them interest. Now pull out your one called fractional reserve lending. You see that little red arrow?
Yes, ma'am.
So let's follow the chart here. So Adam deposits $1,000 into the bank. Then Ann borrows $900. So how much is still in the bank? $100, right? Is sitting in the bank.
10%, yeah.
Yep. Ann repays her $900. The bank collects interest on that. And then Adam comes back for his $1,000. So what got left behind? Some interest, right? The bank gets to pocket that for their services, for safeguarding your cash. And that's okay. I think in what's the word I'm looking for? In moderation, that's okay because the bank has operating costs. So I think they should be allowed to keep some money. But what they started to do, and how our law is written, is that they can lend out, was it 10%? Or is it 80%? Hold on, let me look.
80.
Probably 80, I would think.
Yeah, I think it was.
Right, here it is. Every bank in the U.S. is allowed to loan out at least 10 times more money than they actually have. So if they charge you 8% interest, but they're charging everybody 8% interest times 10, they're actually making 80% interest. So this is how banks make their money, and this is why banks have the biggest buildings,
That's right.
is because they're collecting all this interest on deposits. And they're creating, it's not like they're just handing out certificates of deposit for what they have. They're making and distributing much more mediums of exchange or certificates of deposit than what they actually have in the bank. And then they're using this paper money, charging interest on the use of it because it is an acceptable medium of exchange. They can use it people can use it to buy and sell. And then when you have a loan out at the bank, you pay back what you borrowed, which was all fake anyway. It was just paper to the bank. You weren't actually borrowing goods out of the bank, stored gold or whatever. You were just basically borrowing this medium of exchange paper. You give the bank back the paper that they gave you, plus you have to give them back more paper, and this is how they become wealthy. So this is this whole idea of fractional reserve lending. And according to the early Catholic Church, I believe it was,
I think so.
in the Middle Ages, canon law, or the law of the Catholic Church, forbade charging interest on loans. This concept followed the teachings of Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas. They taught that the purpose of money was to serve the members of society, to facilitate the exchange of goods needed to lead a virtuous life. Interest, in their belief, hindered this purpose by putting an unnecessary burden on the use of money. So the idea here is that you should be able to go to the bank, borrow money, get an IOU in return, pay that money back, and then be on your merry way without having to pay interest. Or if you do need to pay interest to cover the operating expenses of the bank, it should be just that, to cover the operating expenses of the bank and not to make the bankers wealthy. So this is the whole idea of interest and how you've heard taxation is theft. The whole reason that we have an income tax in the United States is to cover the national debt. If there was no national debt, there would be no need to collect interest or income tax from Americans. So this is why this is so important to learn. So,
And that is really key, the national debt.
yes. So we are going to we are going to read the first section is kind of long, but we're going to read the first 2 sections tonight, and then we'll stop. And then we'll have time for testimonies, if there are any testimonies. And of course, our giving and such. Okay, so this first section is just an introduction. Don't get caught up in it. We're just going to skate the surface. But let's get going. Who wants to read? Don't have Stacy or Debbie in here tonight.
I'll start out.
Okay.
The problem. What's going on in America today? Why are we over our heads in debt? Why can't the politicians bring debt under control? Why are so many people, often both parents now, working at low-paying, dead-end jobs and still are making do with less? What's the future of the American economy and the way of life? Why does the government tell us inflation is low when the buying power of our paychecks is declining at an alarming rate? Only a generation ago, bread was a quarter and you could get a new car for $1,995.
Who remembers the price of gas when you were 16?
What'd you say?
The price of gas when you were 16. How much was it?
I think it was like 65 or 85 cents.
Anybody else?
98 cents.
What was it?
98.
I was going to say, I think when we were kids or driving, it was just under $1. It was like, yeah, or right around $1. What about the price of a soda?
10 cents.
10 cents? Dang, 10 cents. And we're how many years later? From the 50 years, about?
Probably.
So 50 years, a can of soda has been inflated by, it's at least 50 cents now, 60, $1? It was 50 cents when we were kids, so 100%? 90%? What about milk? What was milk?
I don't know, we are on the farm.
Oh,
Didn't have to pay for it.
who went to the store to buy
I
milk?
remember in school, you had the 5-cent milk
Yep.
or
Oh,
a
yes,
snack.
Yep,
5 cents for a
5
carton of
cents
milk.
for the little
for
cartons.
the little, yeah.
I think I just bought Levi one of them at the gas station today, and it was like 60, I think.
Some of them are 85 cents. or
85, yeah, that's probably about right. Candy bar?
more. Used to be a nickel.
Candy bars were, a dime,
50 cents.
and now they're, a buck
Yep. Mhm.
at least.
Ice cream.
Ooh.
Ice cream cone.
A quarter.
Now they're like a couple bucks, $3.
Yeah.
Remember?
10 used to get an ice cream cone, double dip, 10 cents.
This is crazy.
So from our time to your time, it's quite a difference though.
That's one generation. Well, not quite a full generation, but
Right.
It's getting close.
yeah.
But with the inflation, but your cost of your gross income has
Yeah.
increased as well.
Oh, that's
So how does that, you know what I mean? How does that equate?
Because there's inflation causes more dollars in circulation, so it takes more of that. It devalues the base value of the dollar, which means it takes more of them to pay for things.
But is it the rate the same? You know what I mean? Is the rate of gross income the same as the rate of food prices?
I don't know.
No.
No, okay.
I guess it depends on where you live too.
Not for everybody.
I'm just curious. Okay, but I know it's going up.
Yes, it definitely has.
Definitely.
Okay, let's continue.
Since 1864, we've had a debt-based system. Are we headed into an economic crash or unprecedented proportions? One which will make the crash of 1929 and the Great Depression, which followed, look like a Sunday school picnic. If so, can we prevent it? And what can we, and what can we,
Reliable?
Do to
reliable
protect.
experts,
Oh, okay.
Nope.
And
What can we do to protect?
Protect our families.
Yeah, we don't have that one.
We don't have
It's
that
on
on the
page
back.
two, reliable.
Okay, that's the back page, and that says, if so, can we prevent it? And what can we do to protect our families,
Oh,
question
there.
mark, right?
Oh,
And rely.
Okay, now it picks up. Now
yeah,
it picks
it
up.
picked up, okay.
Oh, so then reliable experts?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yours is
That
off.
last little part is missing.
Okay. Do you have reliable experts?
yes.
Okay.
Reliable experts say a crash is coming. They also say that there are simple and inexpensive things anyone can do to protect their families, to keep food on the tables and a roof over their heads, even in worse times. But to do that, we have to understand why the crash is coming, who's behind it, what they want, and how the
Perpetrators.
perpetrators plan on protecting their families. Armed with this knowledge, any of us can ride out the coming storm. Larry Bates was a bank president for 11 years. As a member of the Tennessee House of Representatives, he chaired the Committee on Banking and Commerce. He's also a professor of economics and the author of the best-selling book, The New Economic Disorder. I can tell you right now that there is going to be a crash of unprecedented proportions, a crash like we've never seen it before in this country. The greatest shock of this decade is that more people are about to lose more money than any time before in our history. But the second greatest shock will be the incredible amount of money just a small group of people will make at exactly the same time. You see, in the periods of economic upheaval, the economic crisis wealth is not destroyed, it's merely transferred. Presidential candidate Charles Collins is a lawyer, has owned banks and served as a bank director. He believes he'll never get out of debt because of the Federal Reserve is in control of our money. Right now is perpetuated by the Federal Reserve making us borrow the money and prom at interest to pay the interest that already accumulated. So we cannot get out of debt the way we are going now. Economist Henry Paskett is a 10-year instructor in economics. He agrees the end is near for the U.S. economy. Not when you're adding, roughly around term of $1 billion a day, we just cannot go on. We had less than $1 trillion national debt in 1980. Now it's approximately $5 trillion, 5 times greater in 15 years. It doesn't take a genius to realize that this just cannot go on forever.
And remember, this documentary was somewhere in the late 90s, I think. So at that time it was 5 trillion. Now it's like what, 13?
Oh. 20,
20?
1920.
Okay, so we're
Moving
worse off than
forward.
we were 20 years ago.
The problem is that since 1864, we've had a debt-based banking system. All our money is based in government debt.
That is a key point.
Yeah, I'd say.
All of our current money, our medium of exchange, the currency that we use, is based on government debt. Okay, that's not a good thing.
We cannot extinguish government debt without extinguishing our money supply. That's why talk of paying off the national debt without reforming our banking system is an impossibility. That's why the solution does not lie in discussing the size of the national debt, rather it lies in reforming our banking system. This is the Federal Reserve headquarters in Washington. It sits on this very impressive address right on Constitution Avenue, right across from the Lincoln Memorial. But is it federal? Is it really part of the United States government? Well, What we are about to show you is that there is nothing federal about the Federal Reserve, and there are no reserves. The name is a deception created back before the Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913 to make Americans think that an American central bank operates in the public interest. The truth is that the Federal Reserve is a private bank owned by private stockholders and run purely for their private profit.
That is another key point. Understand that the Federal Reserve is actually a private company, a private entity, and they are accountable to no one. And what goes on behind closed doors in those meetings is privy to no one unless you are a wealthy investor in the closed circle of the Federal Reserve Board. And these are all private investors manipulating the U.S. economy for their benefit. So they are basically taking your dollars via tax, and they are spending it however they want and investing in whatever they want and making a profit off of the investment of your dollars. And there should be no need for them to use our money, because if the government wasn't running in, if they weren't spending more than they had, then there would be no need to tax the people.
That's right.
I have something to add to that.
Please.
So, okay, so you had the Civil War end around 1865. Then Woodrow Wilson came into presidency around 1871. You said the Federal Reserve was in Washington, D.C. Woodrow Wilson at that time pushed through a different version of the Constitution, which it originally was the Constitution for the United States, and it became the Constitution of the United States.
Right.
So they incorporated Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to link to the Federal Reserve piece.
And how the country is now run as a corporation,
Mhm.
not as a free
Exactly.
country. I don't think that's covered. I don't recall that, but you bring that up when it makes sense to.
No, wait a minute, I think President Donald Trump has us off of that now, though.
I don't know.
Yes.
I can't speak to
he's
that.
working. Yeah. If he hasn't already, he's working on it.
Yeah, I believe it is done.
Okay.
I believe it is done.
He
Okay.
hasn't.
Yeah, so just remember that, that's good to know. for history.
Yeah, of course. And among other very, very important things, like freeing us from communism and control from China and other international investors that have significant stock in American debt, aside from all of that, there's this whole idea that President Trump understands how the Federal Reserve works,
Yes.
and he understands who all the players are, and he has been working tirelessly to free us from their control. So this is why it's so vitally important that we are engaged in the spiritual battle to make sure that he maintains his position, because if he doesn't, I'm not confident, and well, God is a great God and I trust him, but without President Trump, we stand a chance of losing our freedom as a nation, and that we don't want to see. We don't want to let that go. So we have to do our part.
He has taken care of that already. So they don't own us anymore. You know, we're free from that. That is done. Okay, let's go on, because we'll see things like that come out more.
Okay.
Mhm.
Henry Pescat, that's exactly correct. The Fed is privately owned for-profit corporation, which again has no reserves, at least no reserves to back up the Federal Reserve notes, which is our common currency. Larry Bates, oh, absolutely. The Federal Reserve is neither federal and has doubtful reserve. It is a private bank that is owned by member banks, and it was chartered under the guise of deceit by the Act of Congress in 1913. December 23rd, 1913. When most of the members of Congress had gone home for the holidays, the House of Representatives had passed the the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, but it was having difficulties in getting out of the Senate. And most people had gone home, but one of the things I used to make sure and check is when we had a recess in legislating circles, you want to make sure that if adjourned is what is called the Senate die without date. The Senate had die without date, still technically in session. So you had 3 members of Senate, according to the Senate Journal, who were present on that day, on December 23rd, 1913. They had passed the Federal Reserve Act in the Senate on a unanimous consent voice vote. There was no objection. Had there been one, I think I might be missing a sentence. Had been one
Person did. Yeah,
One
we
person
have
there
that
to object and say and contest the absence of a court, then it would have not passed.
Okay, so this whole concept, I don't fully understand it, but I get the gist of what's being said here. This Senate die without date, if the Senate was adjourned, but had this die without date in play, then it was still considered an active legislative session. So they could still pass laws even if they didn't have a full caucus.
I believe that.
So what happened is this was passed with 3 people present, and they had nobody to object. Which I always wondered, well, then why, when the Senate, Congress re-adjourned, why didn't they address it? But maybe they didn't know it had happened, I don't know.
Was that where Alexander Hamilton, was he part of that?
I don't know. I'm not a history buff. I don't know when
For some
Hamilton
reason I
was.
thought he was part of, but I don't know that for sure.
And I'm surprised their names aren't like well-known, because if they did something so illegal like that to get us in such a mess, their name should be known for doing such evil.
Well, it's got to be in the Senate Journal who the 3 were, I would think.
That's true.
We could go down a lot of bunny trails and get into a lot of can of
Yes,
worms. I just
yes.
want to stay on the main path here of,
Yep.
okay?
So if there's still any doubt whether the Federal Reserve is part of the U.S. government, check your local telephone books. In most cities, it's not listed in any of the blue government pages. It is listed in the business white pages right next to Federal Express, another private
Isn't that
company.
interesting?
But most directly, U.S. courts have ruled time and time again that the Federal Reserve is a private corporation. Why can't Congress do something about the Fed? Most members of Congress don't understand the system, and the few who do are afraid to speak up. For example, initially, a veteran congressman from Chicago asked if he could be interviewed for this video. However, both times our camera crew arrived at his office to do the interview, this was all we were able to film, an empty office. The congressman never appeared and eventually decided he no longer wanted to participate. But a few others in Congress have been bolder over the years. Here are 3 quick examples. 1923, Representative Charles Lindbergh, a Republican from Minnesota, and father of the famed aviator Lucky Lindy. But put it this way, the financial system has been turned over to the Federal Reserve Board. That board administers the finance system by authority of a purely profiteering group. The system is private, conducted for the sole purpose of obtaining the greatest profits from the use of other people's money.
Can you read that last sentence one more time?
Okay.
The system is private, conducted for the sole purpose of obtaining the greatest profits from the use of other people's money. That's your and mine. They take our money from taxation, and then they use it to produce the greatest profits for their own use. Isn't that ridiculous? Doesn't that make you mad? It makes me mad.
You know what this reminds me of? Kind of like the child support agency, which really, when they don't pay into it, it doesn't really go to the county. It goes to the Wisconsin trust fee. And I heard that it's, when you call in, they have no ties to Wisconsin at all. So it's like, okay, well, who's really in control of the money to give it to you? That's what this reminds me of.
Because it may be a private company. That's what
Correct.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Could be.
One of the most unspoken critics in Congress of the Fed was the former chairman of the House Banking and Currency Committee during the Depression years, Louis T. McFadden, Republican of Pennsylvania, who said in 1932, "We have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known." I refer to the Federal Reserve Board. This evil institution has impoverished the people of the United States and has practically bankrupted our government. It has done this through the corrupt practices of the money vultures who control it. Louis T. McFadden. Senator Barry Goldwater was a frequent critic of the Fed. Most Americans have no real understanding of the operation of the international moneylenders. The accounts of the Federal Reserve System have never been audited.
Could you read that one more time?
The accounts of the Federal Reserve System have never been audited.
Isn't that amazing?
It operates outside of the control of Congress and manipulates the credit of the United States. That's just
Amazing.
mind-boggling to me. Why are we allowing this?
Well, yeah.
Because it's a private company.
Because we don't know any better. Did any of you know this before we just read it?
No.
No. Okay, keep going.
Larry Bates, the Federal Reserve really, even though it is not part of the federal government, it is more powerful than the federal government. It is more powerful than the president, the Congress, and the courts. And a lot of people challenge me on that, but let me prove my case. The Federal Reserve determines what the average person's car payment is going to be, what their house payment is going to be, and whether they have a job or not. And I submit to you that that's total control. The Federal Reserve is the largest single creditor of the U.S. government. What does Proverbs tell us? That the borrower is servant to the lender. What one has to understand is that the day of the Constitution was adopted, right up to today, the folks who profit from the privately owned banks, as Madison called them, the money changers, have fought a running battle for control over who gets to print America's money. Why is who prints the money so important? Think of money as just another commodity. If you have a monopoly on a commodity that everyone needs, everyone wants, and nobody has enough of, there are always lots of ways to make a profit and also exert tremendous political influence.
Let's think of a couple of examples. If I had gold bars, would that be a practical medium of exchange for you today?
No.
Can you practically use a bar of gold in any of your life applications? What if I had a monopoly on dark chocolate?
You could buy me.
You would pay good, some of you would pay good money for some of my stash.
Me too.
I'd pay good money for it. What if I had a monopoly on toilet paper? We just recently saw
Right.
at the beginning of this pandemic. Now, toilet paper is practical. What are you going to do without toilet paper? You'd have to like do washcloths or something nasty. And then do a lot of laundry. I'm
Look,
just
there's
saying
leaves
it.
in the backyard
Have a
now.
lot of trees and get someone to make it.
So I was thinking leaves.
Yeah.
There you go.
That sounds complex. So anything can be used as a medium of exchange.
Yes, yeah.
The most important thing that we're going to learn, I can see you. Stop screwing around back there. The most important thing, though, for a
Stop
medium,
your husband in case anybody knows.
Yeah.
for there to be an acceptable medium of exchange, is that it can be used for the payment of taxes.
Yes.
And we're going to learn about tally sticks in a little bit here, which would basically they were just polished sticks of wood. And the king was trying to free his people from the goldsmiths that had the monopoly, had cornered the market on precious metals that they were making into coins. So he took these sticks, cut notches out, polished them up, cut them in half. He kept one, and then the other was in circulation. Now, how do you make a polished stick valuable? You say you can use that polished stick to pay taxes, and then it becomes valuable because it gives it credibility as a medium of exchange. So if we were bartering, like if we came to a place where the inflation was so high that our paper money was literally worthless and you could use it as toilet paper more practically than you could use it to go buy something, then what would become valuable to you in your life?
Got it.
Toilet paper would become valuable to me. What else?
Coffee.
Food,
Coffee.
a chicken farmer, somebody who grew, I'd want to make friends with all my local farmers so I could still eat, you know? I'd make sure Donna lived close enough to me so she could help me sew clothes back together if I needed them. Somebody that could sew, I can't sew. Can you sew? What would you be useful for? Would you still be my friend?
She'd be still a protector in the military, so.
I can protect you. Well, you can protect yourself.
But you'd start looking at your friend circles differently, how they provide value to you, and if they are not, then you probably spend less time with them because, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
You would
yes.
start to revalue your lifestyle choices, what's important to you, what's a priority, what's a need, what's a want,
That's true.
okay? So,
But on a global scale, it would probably be natural resources.
Yes.
absolutely.
I just want to bring out a point too, just real quick, because I just Googled, but Charles Lindbergh, Republican. McFadden, Republican. Barry Goldwater, Arizona Republican businessman. So all Republican, all conservative, people who brought this to light. So,
Amazing.
Well, Republicans are historically fiscally conservative, so that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yeah.
They
It
they
does.
want to not operate in debt. They want to operate responsibly, for the most part. Okay, where were we?
That's what this battle is all about. Throughout the history of the United States, the money power has gone back and forth between Congress and some sort of privately owned central bank. The Founding Fathers knew that the evils of the privately owned central bank, first of all, they had seen how the privately owned British Central Bank, the Bank of England, had run up the British national debt to such an extent that the Parliament had been forced to place unfair taxes on the American colonies. In fact, as we see later, Benjamin Franklin claimed that this was the real cause of the American Revolution.
Taxation without representation. That's where that term came from, was the American colonies being forced to pay unfair taxes back to the King of England, but they had no representation in the English Parliament. So they were being forced to pay taxes on things they didn't believe was fair, and they had no spokesperson in Parliament to speak out against it.
Right.
So that's where that comes from.
So it's gonna be a while.
It's kind of, that's kind of what
We don't have.
our unions do today. If we don't have a right to work law, the unions dictate if you can have that job. You can have that job if you pay the union a fee for you to go out there and work.
Yes, yes.
How are we doing on time? Okay, we're doing good. We're gonna finish this section.
Thomas Jefferson put it this way: I sincerely believe that the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies.
Yeah.
Issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs, Thomas Jefferson. That succinct statement of Jefferson is, in fact, the solution to all of our economic problems today. It bears repeating. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. James Madison, the main author of the Constitution, agreed. Interestingly, he called those behind the central bank scheme money changers. Madison strongly criticized their actions. History records that the money changers used every form of abuse, intrigue, deceit, and violence means possible to maintain their control over the governments by controlling money and its issuance.
So if you control the creation of money, the value of it, and its issuance, then you control a government. You control world governments. So it's not the government. I mean, we think that we're voting and we're having a say in how our government works, but actually it's the wealthy elite, as it's called right here, the accumulation of wealth and power in international bankers. So it's this small group of wealthy, elitist international bankers who are really calling the shots and ultimately causing wars. And we'll find that out.
The battle over who gets to issue our money has been the pivotal issue throughout the history of the United States. Wars are fought over it, depressions are caused to acquire it, yet after World War I, this battle was rarely mentioned in the newspaper or history books. Why? By World War I, the money changers, with their dominant wealth, had seized control of most of the nation's press.
And do we see that still applying, that principle still applying today? All of the media outlets that we're seeing right now are falsely advertising the election results. And we haven't even counted all the votes yet. They're all practically declaring a winner. How does that work? How do states flip overnight? How do ballots that are counted from midnight to 4 a.m. in the morning all of a sudden favor one candidate over another? I mean, there's some funky stuff going on. But I'm just saying that this control of the national press used to be honest and critical. They used to report independently. But since World War I, so when was that? Who knows?
World War I was in the 1930s.
Okay, 1930s, so we're now 100 years from there about? 100 years? 100 years ago, the press was already owned by these wealthy people. So we've been being fed a load of crap for 100 years.
Yes.
The propaganda machine is alive and well.
Throughout U.S. history, the battle over who gets the power to issue the money has raged. In fact, it has changed hands back and forth 8 times since 1764. Yet, this fact has virtually vanished from public view for over 3 generations behind a smokescreen emitted by the Fed cheerleaders in the media. Until we stop talking about deficits and government spending and start talking about who controls how much money we have, it's all just a big shell game. A complete and utter deception. It won't matter if we pass an ironclad amendment to the Constitution mandating a balanced budget. Our situation is only going to get worse until we root out the cause at its source. What's the solution for our national problem? First of all, education. That's what this presentation is all about. But secondly, we must act. We must take back the power to issue our own money. Issuing our own money is not a radical solution. I want to stress that. It's the same solution used at different points in the U.S. in history by men like Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Martin Van Buren, and Abraham Lincoln. So, to sum it all up, in 1913, Congress gave an independent central bank, deceptively named the Federal Reserve, a monopoly over issuing America's money, and the debt generated by this quasi-private corporation is what is killing the American economy. Through the Federal Reserve is now the most powerful central bank in the world. It is not the first.
So we're just going to read that short section 2, the money changers, and then we'll be done for today. Debbie, you want to read? Oh, you need glasses?
Yeah,
Just read section 2 for me.
here you go.
Money changers. Just who are these money changers James Madison spoke of? In the Bible, 2,000 years ago, Jesus drove the money changers from the temple. It was the only time Jesus used force during his ministry. What were money changers doing in the temple? When Jews came to Jerusalem to pay their temple tax, they could only pay it with a special coin, a half shekel of the sanctuary. And this was a half ounce of pure silver, about this size. I don't know. It was the only coin around at that time which was pure silver and of assured weight, without the image of pagan emperor. Therefore, for the Jews, the half shekel was the only coin acceptable to God.
There's a few sentences missing.
Yeah, 100 pennies.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have
it
pennies.
is.
So somebody have that, those
But these
boxes?
coins were not plentiful. The money changers had cornered the market on them. Then they raised the price, just like any other commodity, to whatever the market would bear.
Okay, if there's still any doubt whether the Federal Reserve is part of the U.S. government, check your local telephone book.
Nope, you're in the
No.
wrong spot.
Next page.
Finish reading, Keisha.
So you get that one then.
In other words, money changers were making exorbitant profits because they had a virtual monopoly on money. The Jews had to pay whatever they demanded. To Jesus, this totally violated the sanctity of God's house.
So they had turned the house of prayer into a profiteering monopoly. And that really ticked Jesus off because that was not the point. I'm just going to read section 3 here because it's a jump off point and then we're going to stop because it's short anyway. But the money changing scam did not originate in Jesus' day. 200 years before Christ, Rome was having trouble with money changers. 2 early Roman empires had tried to diminish the power of the money changers by reforming usury laws and limiting land ownership to 500 acres. Guess what happened? They got knocked off. Both were assassinated. Does anyone know what happened to Lincoln?
Yeah.
How about,
Kennedy?
yep, I was just going to say that. There's one more that comes to mind.
They tried Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Okay.
They tried.
They tried.
Yeah, but,
In 48 BC, Julius Caesar took back the power to coin money from the money changers and minted coins for the benefit of all. With this new plentiful supply of money, he built great public works projects. By making money plentiful, Caesar won the love of the common man, but the money changers hated him. Does that sound familiar? Some believe this was an important factor in Caesar's assassination, so now Caesar got knocked off. One thing is for sure, with the death of Caesar came the demise of plentiful money in Rome. We've all heard how the Roman Empire was just, isn't that where they had the big Colosseum?
Yes.
Yep.
It was just it was a very wealthy, prosperous place. That came because Caesar took back control of the money in the Roman Empire. Taxes increased, as did corruption. Just as in the case of America today, usury and debased coin became the rule. Eventually, the Roman money supply was reduced by 90%. As a result, the common people lost their lands and their homes, just as it is about to happen soon in America. With the demise of plentiful money, the masses lost confidence in the Roman government and refused to support it. Rome plunged into the gloom of the Dark Ages. we're gonna stop from there. So I hope you got your feet wet a little bit. And next week, we're going to keep going and read about more of how this affects us in our everyday life and how money changers were ultimately at play in every major conflict that we've had in our country's history.
So I just want to mention one thing.
Well, let me say this here first. We'll have Kim send this out to your emails, and then you copy it off to you, okay? Okay, go ahead.
So I don't know if you guys are aware, I kind of stumbled across it, but Trump has published a new curriculum. It's called the 1776 curriculum. So history, American history, I'm presuming. I have not checked it out yet. I just kind of came across it. And yeah, so anybody who's a school teacher or whatnot.
So he
Yeah.
published it?
What's that?
He's published it,
Mhm.
like in,
It's out there.
like recently, in the
You
last
go
4 years?
online, I can probably find the link for you. I can probably bring that next week, but yeah, I think it's even free, so anybody who.
I would like just to read it myself.
Well, Memphis would probably love it. He loves history.
I'm interested.
I like it.
I like history that I feel like is accurate. But there's been so much history I've been fed most of my life that, like any of this propaganda, after a while you just don't want to read it anymore because I don't feel like it's true.
It's watered down, yeah.
But you
Well, you
listen
don't
to
know where to get
David
the truth
Barton
from.
and you will get a lot of true
Mhm.
facts.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
that's
But
where
I
it's
didn't
coming
find him
from.
till
Well,
now.
I mean,
Yeah.
and that's
Mhm.
my case too, you know, and so when I do hear him, I just want suck it out of him. I love hearing about the history, the real thing about Columbus or whoever you're learning about in the past, that's lies spoken of them.
Starts with education.
Mhm.
Oh.
Does anyone have a testimony? Don't you have one, Erin? I thought recently you had told me one. It'll come back to you. I think you do have one. Joey has one. Debbie, do you have one from our trip? No? Could you grab Joey? I want to show off his life tattoos. Could you grab them from the
Am I
Super
allowed
Kids?
to
Yeah.
take him out of class?
Is she allowed to grab Joey for a testimony? We're like almost done.
I don't know.
It's 8 o'clock. Yes, you're allowed.
Try.
I'll ask for forgiveness later. Okay, so
What, do you want these back or what are we doing with these right now? Because I have it where we left off.
yeah,
so
I
I'm
think
just
you can
asking
keep
what
it.
you're doing with them.
But I think what we need to know too is that Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, is our president. And
Yes.
all the fraud is coming out. We know it 100%. He is. And he's going to take care of this thing quickly,
Amen.
the voter fraud. We know it without a shadow of a doubt. It is done.
Amen.
Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
So just that you know, so don't become, I had calls today and different things from people, you know,
Oh, so
text
did I.
messages that were fearful and angry, and I said, don't worry, everything is taken care of. He is our president, he expected this, he's already got plans, he's on top of this, and he does. We are not incorporated anymore in this country. Our president is already taking care of that.
Amen.
We got back our freedom from the banks. We have that back. Okay, so we'll see more wonderful stuff happening.
Just sit down, kid. Okay, so we, on vacation, the last couple of days of our vacation, we were running around at my Army friend's house in Alabama, and he is a country boy. Like, if you were to look up redneck in the dictionary, you would find his picture. I mean, he's like in the boondocks of Alabama. It takes you a solid 20 minutes to even wind up in there where he lives from any major highway. So when you're out that far in the boondocks, if you get hurt, I mean, he's got a medicine cabinet that's got all sorts of different shots of different drugs and stuff and bandages, because you really can't get anywhere fast enough without a medevac in a life-threatening situation. So, but he's also one of those guys who kind of lives life on the edge. He's got a whole bunch of different ATVs and he's just a
Golf carts?
yep. He's a
Brothers?
yes, all of those things. He lives
Motorcycles?
yes. He just lives on gas, you know, pedal to the metal, full bore all the time. The last time we were there 5 years ago, he took us on a bus. He's got a school bus on his property. They have 100 acres out here. And he has this trail through his property, and he took us on a bus ride, and Aaron and I thought we were literally not gonna walk out of there alive, because he had, I think at one point he had the bus on 2 wheels going around the corner, and we were like, oh my word. So that's how they have fun, country boys in the middle of deep South Alabama. They have nothing else to do out there but see if they can kill themselves. So he had Joey on every sort of 4-wheel and 2-wheel vehicle he had available. And would you like to tell the testimony?
I'm good.
Well,
And he was on a 4-wheeler, and somebody else was coming down the trail from the opposite direction in a golf cart, I think it was. And so he was moving off the trail to get out of the way. But, you know, a city boy here never really knew or had never come into contact with barbed wire fences before. So he didn't know to look for them. And so he drove off the path, and the barbed wire fence just clotheslined him. I mean, he stopped and the 4-wheeler kept going. He went into the fence and stuck there for a minute, and then he fell onto his back.
Yes.
Oh my God.
And so it freaked him out a little bit.
Ouchie.
It hurt a little bit. You want to show off your life tattoos?
I'm good.
Well, show a couple of them. He's got
Yeah, that's barbed wire.
oh.
that. He's got that on his face. A couple on his arm. He's got one on his stomach.
Ooh, oh, yeah.
And then he fell off a scooter, and he got that one there.
Yeah.
Six-pack.
This one was pretty. This one had fat tissue coming out of it. Well, I didn't tell you that at the time. And this one, I wasn't sure if we'd need stitch. This one right here is a puncture wound that went pretty deep. And so anyway, all this, so, you know, he's a little startled, and he's, you know, crying, and Bam is freaking out because he's thinking that's what we call my friend. He's from Alabama, we call him Bam. He's doing it, but he understands how to do, like, assess the casualties. So he's looking for, did we catch an artery? He's checking the neck, he's checking the chest and everything. And he looked at me and he said, that could have been a lot worse. We were very fortunate. But you know what, I had already pled you know how I roll? I had already pled the blood of Jesus over the kids. I'd given my angels charge over them to lift them up, lest they dash their foot against a stone. So it wasn't a surprise to me that Joey, you know, he was a little startled and he was bleeding and, you know, it hurt. But at the end of the day, we took him back to the house, got him cleaned up, and said, get back out there, have some more fun.
Well, Bama
It's time to
said
step
too,
on the gas.
he said before Joel got on the 4-wheeler, y'all need a helmet? Yeah, that means, do you need a helmet? And Joel said, no, my mom doesn't we don't wear helmets. So I was thinking that was kind of an answer to prayer too, because if that helmet was on, that barbed wire would have spread right to his neck, I think, because it was perfect height for his,
Yeah.
it would have caught that helmet and slid down right to his throat, I think.
That's why you never wear a helmet.
No.
That's a good reason.
Okay, so for perspective, he rides a 4-wheeler around our 3-acre property, so he doesn't pick up enough speed really for a helmet. Not like when he's got 100 acres to run around on, and probably a faster 4-wheeler. But anyway, I just wanted to share that because
When we were home and on the farm, we tangled with the barbed wire fence a lot. I don't even know where the marks are anymore. We did that because that's the way you did things.
Can somebody give interesting? She gave me a testimony this morning.
And I just was really blessed that I knew enough to we put raw honey. I mean, he didn't have a whole lot to pick from. I didn't have my oils with me, I just had what I had. So we put raw honey on, and then I put some lavender oil, and whatever. Then when I got home, I put some different oils on. But it's healing up really nice. I took him to the doctor just to see if I needed to get him stitched up anywhere, and she said at this point, it's already starting to heal from the inside. I'm not gonna mess with it. So,
Healing up.
okay, you can go back to class. Go
It's
away.
healed. Apparently Christine had a testimony.
Oh,
So
okay.
she wants to come in.
Okay, well, we'll do our tithe and offering if you've got one.
Yes, I do. But I gotta find it. To pass it, I'll catch it on the way back.
Thank you, sir.
Oops. A little late, Jacob.
We almost got, when we were driving home, I think 3 times we counted, we almost got into an accident. Not us, but people just driving like morons and cutting us off. One guy was swerving all over the road and almost
Well,
like,
if you don't have a beer in your hand and anywhere they're driving in Alabama, you could probably pull over.
Spirit or
I think
shotgun
something
or
about
what?
So we were totally protected the whole time.
Was it windy when you were
Amen.
coming home too, or no?
It was a little windy. Did you say windy? Yeah, it was a little bit windy, yeah.
You know, that's why we have to stay in prayer, in praise for our president. When we pray in the Spirit, we're praying, you can pray in tongues, sing in tongues, because we are the church going before him, and as we praise and worship God, he has the army coming. And we're gonna see this whole thing flip and come out just beautiful.
Amen.
But he's gonna do it quickly. It's not gonna take a year or 2 years.
Right.
It's not going to, so I'm excited.
Thank you.
Well, I know today, I was teaching, it was my day, we have chapel for the little ones on Wednesdays, and so today's story was Joseph and the code many colors and his story, and it's the whole thing, and it just helped me to kind of stay focused most of the day. It's like, God is always with us. Things look bad, but he's still with us. And then it can go up and things still can look bad, but he's still with us. And it's things that men may, be for evil, God will turn it around for good. So it's something that I just kind of kept thinking about all day. And then, after a while, you think about it so much it'll make you just agitated. And pretty soon I was like, I just got to get and take a walk. And I'm like, all right, I'm just done. I just won't hardly watch TV at this point because I'm like, it's going to happen. And I just feel like I just keep praising the Lord, and, not lose faith.
We're gonna do a worship song on our way out today. Do you have it pulled up? Okay, after we take communion, we're gonna turn the lights down low, and we're gonna sing a little tune before we leave. Because
Amen.
I think that's how we praise until we get what we want, right?
Amen.
That's
And
how we
don't
find
watch
the
a
battle.
lot of Fox, don't watch CNN or NBC or CBS, or don't waste your time.
Like we know that David sent the praise and worshipers out before, we're gonna do that tonight.
Amen.
All right, so let's pull up our bread, and we just recognize that Jesus' body was broken and bruised and chastised for our peace. And I just thank you, Jesus, that you were broken so we could be made whole. And I receive that in Jesus' name.
Amen.
And his blood was shed for the redemption of our sins, so that we could be made the righteousness of God and the seed of Abraham. And I appreciate that so much. Thank you, Jesus, for your blood in Jesus' name. All right,
Let's set ourselves in agreement though first, for Donna. It's a slow recovery. No, it's fast.
Amen.
This is enough of this
Amen.
nonsense. In the name of Jesus, I speak to her lungs and I command
Amen.
her lungs to come into order in Jesus' name and
Amen.
everything in her.
Amen.
You agree?
Amen.
She walks in divine health.
Amen.
Amen.
Here, another little tip.
crank it up there, Lynn.
This is mine. Is that yours? Oh, that's mine.
But I'll stand up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are we gonna stand?
Yeah, we're gonna stand.
We're gonna stand.
A little party.
A little party, oh, the party.
We're starting the party.
Splish splash, that was Saturday night.
We're just tapping now.
Relaxing in the tub.
Having fun.
Going
I
all
know
right.
it.
Steps in the tub, with the feet on the floor. Wrap the towel around me, then I opened the door, and then splish splash, forgot about the bath. I went and put my dancing shoes on.
Okay, that's where you're going.
Okay, are we ready?
She's working on it.
I just been dancing all day.
The funny part about that, Memphis knows that song.
Is it really? Oh, I love it.
He likes the 50s stuff.
And I'm the old starting face. Oh, you're